This video might be a little bit more complex than the other ones. Maybe you might want to watch it a whole bunch of times and take notes and think very clearly. Maybe you should take it point by point. That's part of why I've made it point by point. The expected path that the leopard takes and how it ends. The determinant in how it ends is society's design and people's inability to transcend that design or psychological construct, to overcome the psychology of their oppressor, to see that being controlled opposition is not enough, and being survivor means you're serving the eye of this world, of the deity of this world, Hades, Pluto, Apis, Zagreus. There's a whole bunch of them that are significant here, Osiris, and so on and so forth, Lucifer. Okay, so in clashing with Lucifer, I was taught how to fight. Ultimately, the Lord, Ra, taught me how to fight. But in sparring with Lucifer, it helped me to understand the Lord's messages, though I do not think it is God's work to serve Lucifer. You know, this is something for lesser men and lesser people to do. Anyway, so the expected path of the leopard and how it ends. Number one, the ugly duckling to the ugly puppy, ending with the sickly falcon, the image. Compared to how I would look if I had been treated fairly my whole life, if women had helped nurture me, if I was given a true martial art system to build from, I look like a sick hawk, a sick falcon. Just because I look better than a lot of people do doesn't mean I am not in the image of a sickly falcon and greatly sabotaged so other people can try to pretend that they're better martial artists, that they're more handsome, and they're more ideal, and they should be revered and respected more. When I went to University of Phoenix, they talked about the 5 forms of power. I'm just going to touch on this real quickly. One of them was reverent power, leveraging your your reverence in the community to attain power. And this is part of why they do this. It's very straightforward, scientific and otherwise. Anyway, so the falcon, right? The falcon feels the con and cannot live. It's the fishing out of water effect. Right? The falcon cannot live in a system of con men where he's put beneath. He is going to die. He's going to be screened out, etc. Right? Set, tease, right? Backwards, right? He's teased. Who, what, when, where, how, why, right? And there's sexual sabotage. They're trying to confuse him about who he is, and sexual trauma-based mind control, if you will, is part of it. Trying to get him to act in a homosexual manner. Trying to get him to settle, etc., etc. These things confuse you and destroy the ego, if you will, but the ego is simply the sense of self. Having an ego is not a bad thing. Having an inflated ego is bad. And who has it? Can the top martial artist have an inflated ego? No. He can only be the top martial artist by walking in true guise, if he has proven it in reality and not through the system or the Olympics or some kind of Kumite challenge or some insignificant mainstream kind of bitch-made illusion challenge like that, with all due respect. Okay. Number 2, the desperate vultures and early attempts to sabotage him. Early attempts to prey on him, to get him to settle. Early sabotage to put him beneath the worldly social order and develop his sexual identity incorrectly. I can't stress this enough. They did it to me. They tried to set the stage for me to be sexually immoral with little boys instead of, if anything, the guy should be fooling around with little girls. They're trying to make it so that black people aren't desirable. Women are looking like, ew, you're disgusted. Guys have cooties and black people have the most cooties. He goes to a private school because he's coming from a continuity of people who only plant their seed if they can do it in a respectable manner. That's part of this now. They're only going to plant their seed if they perceive the potential for him to be treated fairly. Okay. So he's probably going to go to private school or something like that with a bunch of people who aren't black or a bunch of house niggas and so on. Some house niggas and a bunch of people who aren't black who see him as inferior, which is going to make him more likely to be sexually immoral. There's a whole bunch of angles they move. I don't have time to explore this, but there's an emphasis working the angles. And even if I covered every angle that I've noticed, doesn't mean they're not going to come up with new ones and variations of old ones, mind you. Okay. So you have to think about applications, angles. Falling the angle, using the angles, right, and so on. Number 3, the school, sports, females, etc. They're trying to confuse him about his identity and worth. His own coach is probably going to sabotage him. His own teammates are probably going to sabotage him to some degree, for various reasons, right? The sabotage is greater than you might think. However deep you think it goes deeper. However complex you think it is more complex. These are the people with the feminine, kind of worldly, female mind, scientific approach to sabotage, and their tactics get quite complex, like chemistry and advanced chemistry and so on and so forth. Anyway, friends trying to bond through social norms and mainstream activities. So there's a degree of people honestly trying to be his friend, but ultimately, for one reason or another, they're going to contribute to his downfall. Number 4. This is, remember, Saturn, the deity of role reversal. His consort is ops. Ops, like psychops, psyche and ops, for the purpose of the psyche logos, or psychology, psychological operations. Saturn, role reversal, psyche, her trance, and ops, okay, the consort of Saturn, who I believe is Rhea, who is violated by Mars to give you the Roman people. Okay, and of course he also has Venus as his consort. I'm not going to confuse this anymore into that. If you're interested in this, go and look into my other videos. So number 4, the extreme heartbreak around the time he emerges. So they're going to want to give him the most effective blow around the time he emerges. He's about to emerge. He's about to take off. Let's cause him to stumble. Okay? He's about to make his move, in a sense, in a way. One of his key moves. Let's mess up that process, right? They inject really a female named Maria, in my case, right? Mary A, the Virgin Mary, right? The Virgin Maria, if you will, in some languages, right? This is key. Even the name was key. Her name was, with all due respect, her name was Maria Mello, right? You think that's a coincidence? She would have mellowed him out. She would have nurtured him in a way that made him presentable to society. Instead, he became angry. Okay, he became ferocious. This is for the justification of mental health stepping in. So extreme heartbreak around the time he emerges, in my case, 16 or so. This is a key turning point when I'm emerging with point sparring, right? Around 1997 when I win this trophy. This is not a coincidence. No way, no how. He is the son of 2 doctors. One is an African brain surgeon. Yes, eugenics is about sabotaging the second generation of Africans because they have a deal with the first, perhaps, okay, so that they cannot show a continuity of hereditary intelligence unless it is some house African American or some house African, some token minority who's showing the continuity of an inferior form of intelligence. You can't show the continuity of the African who logically outperformed every intellectual and academic in America by being far more sabotaged than they were, coming from a war zone, a civil war where 2 million of his fellow tribesmen were murdered and many women were raped, right? Coming here penniless as a refugee and becoming perhaps the greatest brain surgeon in American history when it comes to some applications. And certainly giving away $300,000 of charitable service and so on a year. Okay? When you look at the worth and what the difference between a doctor and a shark or a lawyer, okay, who becomes a doctor, who becomes a lawyer? Therefore, charity and moral worth factors in to the worth of a doctor and his wisdom, right? That's the angle you are playing, Mr. Doctor. Therefore, if you are not as sabotaged, that must be considered. If you are not as charitable, that must be considered. If you are only charitable when you have millions of dollars in the bank, that must be considered. My goodness, I literally deal with cowards. Cowards. Dishonorable, disgraced, depraved dogs who can't even accept that truth and train their daughters to follow suit. Despicable. I want nothing to do with them, neither does God. Number 5, having got him to act up, authorities and mental health step in. It wasn't meant to be versus she is the one debate, right? He's challenging their cultural and social norms on many levels. Number 6, society targets him and the major emphasis is on sabotaging his image, especially martial arts skill and mental prowess. Now let's take a moment. Take a breath. Do I need medication to calm down? Or can I calm myself down as needed? Do I have a long, violent criminal history on record, a criminal record? No. I have no criminal record at this point. Moving on. and I'm in my late 30s, mind you, as a black man in California who hung out with gang members. Once you consider all the obstacles and the likelihood of me having a criminal record, I have demonstrated an exceptional ability to control myself. A notable ability, a profoundly respected ability to control myself. Everyone should be learning from me, not saying he needs to be on drugs. How stupid is their argument? Because of female energy, think about who was the first in the house on the plantation. It was the woman, right? Relational aggression, right? It's a play on words for raw, but they're trying to make the female raw, and human trafficking, raw fucking. I went into the wordplay on that in other videos, right? Human trafficking is basically abusing those people who are seen as being attractive quite often, and seeing things more like I see it, without seeing it exactly like I see it, or they wouldn't allow themselves to sink to such a disgraceful level. This is key in my view. This is key when it comes to ill-gotten gains as well. People who are truly in the spirit of God do not allow to sink themselves to sink to a position of disgrace, okay, of dishonor. They insist on honor, and they fight for honor, and they fight for honor to the death. And this is, I have books, this is a pervasive theme in more than one culture. Fighting for honor, their idea of fighting for honor to the death, as it is in the last part of this book. I don't have time to go over it. I've gone over it in other videos. Well, if I have time at the end, I will. Let's go through this. Best interest. They have made it in this person's best interest to die. They have drugged out the spirit, his ability to connect to God. Women are shunning him. He's chemically castrated. There's walls and cultural barriers between him and women. There's a yuppie design. There's mental barriers from a long history of shunning to overkill the point for good measure, if you will. Number 3, the family. The third plantation reasoning. The old drugged, complicit, hit in the back example. Okay, so they basically have a plantation effect, right, with the family. They put him out in the middle of nowhere. I don't have time to go through that. Let's just go through the points. Number 4, he's drugged. The weed is laced. The drug interactions. His brain is made vulnerable. Okay, number 5, the alcohol. He's drugged. He's not allowed to drink. So he's not allowed to smoke weed because they've drugged the weed and made it clear to him if he tries to smoke weed, he'll get very sick. It made it clear to him if he tries to drink, he'll get very sick. So, his family has betrayed him to some degree. He's being covertly drugged out of the spirit, out of his ability to connect to God, right? The way, the truth, and the life. Martial arts is a lifestyle. If you take away one's ability to truly come into that lifestyle in a way that they see fit, you've basically taken away their life. What is he living for? To be a zombie, to be your slave, to make demons look good, to make cowards look good? It's stupid. And when I say demons, I mean the idea of a demon. We'll get into that later if we have time. So number 6, he's aged. He's old. The best years of his life are gone. And he can't even live, he can't even practice his religion and his martial arts. Number 7, there's denial in society. Nonsensical people, right? Focus on what is sensational, and I've went over this before. I've actually gone over this list before in another video. Sensitized, sensitive, sensibility, presence, essence, sensory, right? Sensory, right? Sensory deprivation. His ability to sense ancestors, sensory, right? Play on words. Number 8, his movement is reduced. His image. Number 9, he's made sick, and they're trying to make it so that he participates in their experiment and their understanding of man. Number 10, honesty, honorable, hone and hone in are related. Figure it out. Number 11, he's wasting his time in this world. Going back to number 2, right? Women, show the line. Women is line. What's the purpose of life? Is to procreate with a desirable woman that you're madly in love with. It's not to just kind of experience life in a way that you're allowed for by a bunch of corrupt politicians and sick corporate sickos. That's stupid. It's stupid to see it that way. If you're gonna, how dramatic does it have to be? How obvious does it have to be before you realize life is not worth living? Number 12, pro-sense and presence are connected versus con-sense and consensus. A consensus of less than top martial artists means nothing, compared to the argument of the top martial arts, which considers their views and is a superior superior opinion. Number 13. Other martial artists, the arts of being unreasonable, are basically practicing the arts of being unreasonable. Okay, sense A. They should sense A and fall in line, not pretend that they are A or they are the pinnacle of martial arts. Their system is meant to bow to me, and it is my call. Anyone who is a martial artist should answer my call. Okay, so it's the difference between confront